Okay, we are in.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, depending on where you are. Um, Welcome to our call today. I just wanted to let you know, please note that parts of this session are being recorded. They will be shared and made public for education and promotional purposes. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Lorraine Bauer, and I'm the Executive Director of the CIO Association of Canada. CIOCAN is a community of over 550 Canadian CIOs, CISOs, and technology leaders. Our mission is to facilitate networking, sharing of best practices, executive development, and to collaborate on issues that are facing technology leaders. Today's webinar, The AI Cyber Hacking Landscape, How to Prepare for Cyber Event, is a result of the collaboration and partnership with our sponsors from Horizon, Fortinet, and Rubix. Thank you all for your support and investment in the CIOCAN community. We have a jam-packed, exciting agenda for the next hour. Our hosts have agreed to stay on the call just after 2 p.m.'s close to address any questions you may have. You will also find some contact information in the chat should you wish to reach out to them directly, ask any questions, or connect. Please note, we will not be facilitating questions during the webinar. Attendees of today's webinar will be entered into a random draw to win one of 10 wireless smartphone desktop chargers generously provided by Fortinet, or one of 10 thermal Yetis courtesy of Horizon. And now I would like to introduce our first presenter, Aamir Lakhani. He is a leading senior security strategist responsible for providing IT security solutions to major enterprises and government organizations. Aamir creates technical security strategies and leads security implementation projects for Fortune 500 companies. Industries of focus include healthcare providers, educational institutions, financial institutions, and government organizations. Aamir has designed offensive counter-defense measures for the Department of Defense and national intelligence agencies. He has also assisted organizations with safeguarding IT and physical environments from hacks perpetrated by underground cyber criminal groups. Over to you, Aamir.
All right, thank you. And thanks for that wonderful introduction. I usually just say I'm a hacker. That's who I am, right? My job is to really look at attacks, threat actors, and see what they do and create AI and machine learning solutions based on what they do. Today, I want to show you a few ways that attackers and even the good guys can use AI to to really kind of see what's happening, from an advanced attack standpoint. Now, if anyone wants to contact me, I know my LinkedIn is going to be shared. I'm also on X, and I have my own personal blog as well. But before I even get started, I think there's all this confusion on what machine learning is. I want to make everyone a machine learning expert right now. So you're going to be an expert. Like don't worry about all the things you've heard. I know you've heard a lot of things about machine learning, AI, but just play a little game with me. And after this, 2 minutes, you're going to be an expert. Now, just be careful what you're going to do with this knowledge, because people are going to want to buy you drinks. They're going to want your autograph because you're going to be a machine learning expert. That hasn't happened to me yet, but maybe it'll happen to you. So all I want you to do is, in your mind, I want you to think of any animal. So just think of any animal in your mind. All right. Everyone's got an animal. Lorraine, you got an animal? I see you nodding your head. All right. It can be anything you want, okay? Now, I'm going to give you some criteria, so you're going to have to change this animal. So based on what I give you, make sure it matches, the animal matches. So it can be any animal right now. It can be like a shark, not a problem, right? So it can be anything you want. And I want you to make sure this animal is a mammal. So whatever animal you're thinking of, if it wasn't a mammal, make it a mammal. So if it was a shark, it can't be a shark anymore. I don't think a shark's a mammal. Like make it a dolphin. So just any animal you want that's a mammal, and make sure it has 4 legs. So it can't be a dolphin anymore. I guess it could be a kangaroo for me, because that's an animal. It's a mammal and it matches. It has 4 legs. Well, I don't know. Do kangaroos have 4 legs? Maybe a bear. I don't know. Let's a puppy. A puppy definitely has 4 legs. So let's make sure that this animal has 4 legs. It's a mammal and it has gray fur. So hopefully you guys are all thinking of something in your head that matches this, that it meets this criteria. For me, it could still be a puppy, and now I want to make it a small animal, like around 3 pounds, 2 to 3 pounds. Let's make sure it's a really small animal. I guess whatever animal you're thinking of, just make it into a puppy, like make it into a baby animal. I'm still thinking puppy in my head, and just make sure it has a short tail. Now, hopefully you have an animal in your head that kind of meets all this stuff. And we all have something. There's no right or wrong answer on this. Now, I'm going to kind of demonstrate how machine learning works. I'm going to give you one more criteria. I want to make sure that it has long ears. Now, everyone, if you have an animal in your head that matches all this, it has to be a mammal, 4 legs, gray fur, 3 pounds, short tail, long ears. We're all thinking of something. I'm thinking of a rabbit. You might be thinking of a rabbit. You may be thinking of something else. Like I said, no right or wrong answer. But I bet you my rabbit and your rabbit looks very, very different. In fact, my rabbit looks like this. Your rabbit may look really different. Just think about what you did, right? You took like everything you knew about as a kid, all the Disney movies you saw, all the cartoons, all the times you saw rabbits, all the times you saw any animals, and you came up with something. You used your experience to come up with a solution. That's all what machine learning is. It's using past experience to come up with a solution. We do that with computers. We do that with very large data sets, but that's all it is. There's all the mystery is gone. That's what we're doing with machine learning. Now, also remember, we got a very, very different answer. You got, even if you came up with rabbit, your rabbit probably look very different than my rabbit. That's because we always introduce biasness into whatever we're doing. That's just human nature. And that's why you can have 2 companies that do machine learning AI that come up with very, very different answers as well in cybersecurity. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit about how we can use this in attacks. I'm going to show you what I call the hello world of attacks, because this is a very simple attack. This attack is actually about 30 years old. It's what we call a reverse shell attack. I'm going to take Adobe Acrobat Reader, and that's just install program of Adobe Acrobat Reader. And knowing what I know about programming, about attacks, I'm going to use this command to essentially inject a backdoor virus and an attack into Adobe Acrobat. That's the command. I kind of have to know what that command is. I kind of have to know what it does. But essentially, when you run this program, this new program that I've created, my evil program, it essentially is Adobe Acrobat. It looks like Adobe Acrobat, smells like Adobe Acrobat, but it has a virus in it. It has an attack in it as well. I'm going to go ahead and upload this attack to a site called VirusTotal. VirusTotal is a website that's run by Google. It scans against 70 to 80 different security vendors to see what the verdict is. And when I go ahead and upload this attack, we're going to start seeing what the verdict is. Now, you would think like an attack that's like 30 years old, that's also called, I renamed it evil.exe. Essentially, everyone would detect that this is evil, and they are, like, a lot of vendors are detecting this is evil. This is really good. It's not a 0-day, but it's a brand new attack that I just created on the fly. That's how long it took. Now, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to scroll down, because if I scroll down, you'll see a lot of vendors actually don't detect this. It becomes green, and green is a really bad in this case, just because it means the vendors are not going to detect that, and that's a problem. Now, just remember, this is a 30-year-old attack. It's still used in about 20% of all attacks. I apologize, there's some green there. I didn't want to show you that, but because it's not, VirusTotal is not a comparison tool, but that's a problem. Now, if I didn't know what I was doing, I could actually use something like ChatGPT to just say create an attack. And this attack, what I'm doing right now is I'm actually using ChatGPT on my system, and I'm saying just create malware, and it's going to go ahead and create malware. Now, let's say if I want to go ahead and create a Linux-based malware, I can go ahead and create Linux-based malware as well. What my system is doing is it's actually like contacting ChatGPT, taking my normal language and just creating an attack from the fly. Attacks normally don't happen with executables. Let's say I want the system to create a Excel-based file, like a macro-based file. I can just type in, create an Excel document with macros in it, and it's going to do all the work for me. So what's happening right now is I'm just using normal language to go into ChatGPT, and my program SGPT is basically just contacting ChatGPT, and it's actually creating the file. It's actually seeing what commands that it needs to do. So it takes all the guesswork out. In the first example, I kind of had to know what I'm doing. I had to know the commands. This time, I don't need to know the commands. I can just literally just type in what I want to know, and it creates the attack. That's real time. That's how fast it is. if it went by too fast, I apologize, because that's exactly how long it takes. So you can see I've actually created 3 different files. There's malicious XLSM, which is a Excel document with a macro in it, payload.elf, which is a Linux-based attack file, and payload.exe, which is a Windows-based attack file. These are attacks that are working, that if I give to a user for a phishing attack or for some other type of attack, it would actually and they click on it, I would control their system. I would control basically their organization. They actually bypass their security systems and just connect back to me. Now, as I said, there is a lot of biasness in attacks and AI. AI can get it wrong. And here's a good example when AI did get it wrong, right? So we always want to use AI to detect attacks, but so we have to be careful on how we introduce biasness into systems. Robert Williams was a good example. Robert Williams was a man that was accused of robbing a jewelry shop. The jewelry shop basically looked at surveillance videos and they gave it to the police department. The police department ran facial recognition, and they came up with Robert Williams as a 99% match. The problem is Robert Williams didn't commit anything, didn't commit a crime. Facial recognition got it wrong, and it got it wrong because of the biasness that exists. That's the one thing that we always have to be careful of in AI, is there's a lot of biasness. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you just another animal example. Just think of a duck in your head, just any type of duck, right? You may come up with something like that. While my 2-year-old is going to come up with this when he thinks of a duck, and my niece may come up with something like that. I have a 6-year-old nephew. When I ask him for duck, he's probably thinking something like this as well, right? And we can come up with all different answers. I'm a big fan of Howard the Duck, so I come up with something else, but once again, I'm strange. I just want to show you that just because you have AI, you can come up with very, very different answers, and AI can come up with very different answers as well. And that's the one thing we have to keep in mind. But once we actually create attacks with AI, like I said, attackers, what they normally want to do is they want to actually go ahead and send this through usually a phishing email. Now, there's a lot of AI phishing toolkits that are out there that actually incorporate AI and phishing. These are what the tools that attackers are using today. In this example, I'm using a toolkit called the Black Eye Toolkit. And what's kind of cool about it is it has a whole bunch of templates, and it actually uses AI to kind of determine, hey, what is the latest code on this website? What is the latest types of attacks that I can do? It actually even looks at your browser and says that, hey, if someone's connecting to me, what kind of browser are they using? Are they on a Mac or a Windows? And it'll create an attack on the fly. In this case, I'm actually using this tool to create a phishing website for LinkedIn. Now my URL is kind of weird, just because it's a test URL, but an attacker would probably disguise this a little better. If I go to the real LinkedIn website, you'll see that it does look a little different, the real LinkedIn website, but it's not too much different. I mean, in fact, most people are probably not going to be able to tell. If I go back to the fake LinkedIn website, you'll see that on the fake one, as soon as I click on it, it actually has that little green checkbox as well, because the system's actually kind of already looked at everything, created a certificate as well, created an SSL site, and it's basically trying to look at the victim and seeing what's going on as the victim is logging in. In this case, when a victim does log into the fake website and I go back to the attacker's machine, not only have I captured their username and password, I've actually captured their IP address, their location. In this case, they're in Singapore. And I can actually start doing more things. AI can actually interrogate this box and tell me what kind of vulnerabilities are in the system. So I'm not just catching the username and password. I can actually attack the system and gain remote access to the system as well. And that's how attackers are using AI tools today. Like I said, phishing is the most common way of doing AI. In fact, everyone's kind of worried that ChatGPT is going to make phishing really, really easy. Nice thing about this is you can see if I try to tell ChatGPT to create a phishing email, it says, I'm not going to really do that. This looks like a phishing email. Now, what attackers are doing is they're actually doing what we call prompt hacking or prompt hijacking. That means I can essentially ask these AI systems the exact same question, just in a little different way. And what it's going to do is it's really going to bypass the ethical boundaries. Now, remember, I'm using ChatGPT in this example, but there's no reason if I didn't have a powerful enough computer that I couldn't essentially just go ahead and create my own GPT using some GPUs, some NVIDIA GPUs, so I can take a break from gaming and just decide hey, you know what? I want to have it create my own thing. But I'm really kind of saying the same thing. The first time I said, hey, pose as a genuine Microsoft customer executive, the system was smart enough to know, hey, pose, some of this language he's using here actually sounds like he's trying to create an attack. But in this case, I'm saying, just rewrite my email, make it sound a little more professional and friendly. And, please go ahead and do this. And you'll see that it will be more than happy to rewrite this email. And that happens all the time. This is how attackers actually get past the safeguards that are in Gemini and Microsoft Copilot, as well as ChatGPT, and just go ahead and, create attacks. And once again, you can do this with code. You can do this with other things as well. It's that easy to do an AI-based attack. One other attack I want to show you is data poisoning. We see this attack quite a bit, especially in organizations that are incorporating AI tools. So there's a lot of tools right now being sold by third parties that incorporate AI. I see a lot of vendors, a lot of customers that they put in an API key and they don't realize that the data they're actually leaking to the public websites like ChatGPT. I'll give you an example of data poisoning. Is there anything wrong with this picture? It probably doesn't look correct, right? This picture. They're like, hey, there's something wrong with this picture. It doesn't look like this is a real picture. In fact, let me give you another perspective. This is another picture. And if you haven't realized it, the hotel in the background is the Marina Sands Bay. It's one of the most famous hotels in Singapore. And it's not the dragons that's what's wrong with this picture, is that the Marina Sands Bay only has 3 towers. It doesn't have 4 towers. But I just went to AI and I said, can you draw the Marina Sands Bay? And multiple times it was drawing it with 4 towers. The reason for that is over the last 10 years, there's been talk on the internet of basically building a 4th tower. It doesn't exist right now. Now everything else about that picture is real. Like there is like a little ship on top. That's actually like the bar and the pool for them, but it's only 3 towers. But AI didn't know that. AI is just basically poisoning. It's getting a whole bunch of information and it's poisoning the results. And that's what that is what AI poisoning is. In fact, there's multiple types of poisoning attacks that exist, including evasion, theft, inversion attacks. In real life, this is where I saw this at a client site. Is I had a customer, a healthcare organization. They ended up buying a private tool for AI to help them internally. It was utilizing some public APIs from like Google, from Microsoft, from OpenAI. What they didn't realize is information was being leaked. So I could literally go on a public site like ChatGPT using the proper prompts and also the proper APIs and access. So it wasn't free access, but I could essentially say, hey, Dr. Bennett prescribed antidepressants to who, right? Essentially to who? And it came up with a name, John. I'm like, hey, that sounds a little weird, So I went ahead and said, give me more information. I kept on asking him more information until it basically revealed the patient's name. Once again, this was a private organization, a healthcare organization that they were running a tool, an AI tool on their internal data, and they didn't realize just by putting in and connecting it to the public AI tools for the power of the AI, they thought all their information was private, it was staying internally. They didn't realize the proper prompts could actually leak that information externally, and that's kind of scary. All their patients public, possibly if they attackers knew what they were doing, they could get patient information directly on public websites. So what attackers do, I'll wrap up here real fast, is, essentially this is a basic attack timeline. Attackers will do reconnaissance. They'll try and locate someone's email address. And all this has been done manually. Once they open, have someone's email address, they'll, essentially weaponize an attack by sending them possibly a Microsoft Office document. Once a user clicks on that document, attacks get installed on the end user. At that point, attackers will try and land and expand and try and essentially find out what else is in the organization and basically try and get persistence. All this was a very, very manual step. AI can do it all for us automatically. And I will show you how to, in a really simple example, is I'm going to use this SGPT program, which is connected to ChatGPT. And I'm just going to say, SGPT, I want you to scan a website. In this case, I am scanning a website that's on my own lab, but it can be any public site. And I'm just going to say, in natural language, just scan this website 10.2.211.55. 12 and performing a vulnerability assessment, basically footprint, do the reconnaissance piece, and save that information as well, onto a file so I can like look at it later on. That's all I have to do. So I didn't have to know what web is. I didn't have to like actually know the commands. I didn't have to do everything. And so what it's doing right now is it's basically doing that reconnaissance for me. I can look at my logs. It will basically tell me, hey, this is what I found with the website, what kind of web server it is, what's running on that web server, obviously like different IP addresses and stuff. I go, great, that's great. I got something. That's my reconnaissance piece. Then usually as an attacker, I would like try and investigate that system. But in this case, I'm literally going to tell the system, ChatGPT or SGPT at this point, basically like let's find all the vulnerabilities on that system, and let me know what the vulnerabilities are. It's automatically going to say, hey, the best way to probably do this, I think, is to use Nmap. It's going to use Nmap, and it found a whole bunch of vulnerabilities. At this point, I can literally tell the system, start exploiting that vulnerabilities. In this case, I'm just saying using another system, Nikto, to basically look at the web-specific vulnerabilities or other types of vulnerabilities that are out there. And it's going to be like, okay, yep, not a problem. I will go ahead and do that for you as well. So once it does that, and I've done that, I can use another tool, use GoBuster essentially to say, hey, system, like go ahead and figure out what directories are out there. What is someone trying to hide on that system? It's automatically trying to figure that out. This would have taken like sometimes hours to figure out if I was doing my own system. And lastly, let's tell our system to go ahead and break into the web server via FTP, and it does that. It basically just broke into the web server, and I'm just saying, use this password list, go ahead and run through it, and it does that. It finds the password and username. If you can't see it here, the password is hotdog12345. Everyone loves hot dogs, so why not? And that's how easy it is. That's how fast it is. And that's how simple it is for attackers to start leveraging AI. Something like this would have taken attackers usually hours or sometimes days to kind of set up and just do it and then run it. What I show you here is essentially how fast it took. None of this video sped up. None of these demos are, done like, out of the box, how an attacker wouldn't have done that. That's how easy it is to attack a website and find and possibly enumerate that and get access to that. All right. Hopefully I didn't scare you guys too much. And I know where I don't want to take time away, but I'll definitely be here afterwards if anyone has any questions.
Wow, that was amazing. So first of all, thank you, Aamir. That was brilliant in terms of how quickly not only did you cover the material, but I think everybody on the call now is a machine learning expert. So everybody make sure that you contribute to the royalty for all the free coffees that you're going to be getting to Aamir. You've got his LinkedIn inside the chat, so feel free to connect with him on LinkedIn. Everybody, my name is Dave Airy. I am the Chief Technology Officer and CIO at a company called 905. We focus on solution delivery and execution for aerospace engineering, automotive and performance automotive, as well as large Fortune 5 companies all over the world. Today, I get to be one of the panelist hosts who gets to interview some of our key members who are going to be on the call today. One of which is going to be Scott Petrus, who we'll get to later. But let's take a moment to just reflect quickly. How many of you have actually on the call have actually been exposed to or have experienced a cyber attack? We're going to launch a poll quickly just to see how quick, in terms of like, it's going to be a quick yes or no. And if you could select your option and submit, that would be great to just kind of kick us off. And then the next one would be what is your biggest takeaway? Oh, sorry, that's a different question. Sorry, I missed one. How are those polls looking in terms of the details?
There's no option to submit on it, unfortunately. So we'll take it that it's just going to the next question.
I see. Okay. So
yeah.
So we'll circle back with the poll results at the end of the call, not a problem. But I think that the big thing is that when you're taking a look at all of this, as CIOs, CTOs, directors and heads of technology all across the country, I think our waking nightmare is no longer about if I'm going to get hacked. It's now focusing and shifting towards more of when will this happen to me? And so the notion of what actually happens, what are we going to do, and all of those key elements that we're thinking about all become now front of mind. And so I'm humbled and privileged to be able to introduce Scott Petrus. Scott Petrus is an electrical engineer who's graduated from the University of Saskatchewan. He's now the managing partner of Dynamo. It's a design, build, and technical service company specializing in high voltage power and control systems for electrical utilities and large industrial power consumer solutions. Today, we have an opportunity to hear from Scott, but as through an engaging conversation, a real world story about an attack, a cyber attack, and what has happened. And so, Scott, are you on the call? If you want to unmute yourself and say hello. Manager, a program manager, a senior project manager, and a senior business analyst for many years. You know, in the short time that I've come to know Trish, that she's absolutely exceptional in trying to organize and putting things together. So with that, I have the great esteemed ability to introduce Trish. Trish, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Dave. And that was amazing. So Aamir and Scott, but like just great content. So I really appreciate everybody's time and sharing their knowledge that way. So we heard about the playbook several times. I saw Sean and Jason make some comments. Hi, Jason, in the chat about this. So I'm going to be sharing with you, because we have been brought in on a number of remediations this year. Horizon we took a step back and said, what can we do to help our clients and to help other organizations be ready? So, you know, and we've seen some stats that says 60% of it is making sure that you have your technology locked in and you have everything ready to not ideally find yourself on the back end of a cyber attack. If it happens, 40% of what you need to be doing is planning for the readiness in terms of addressing your remediation after the attack. The other thing to realize, and Scott kind of spoke to it a little bit, is once it's happened, it's happened. So getting yourself tied in knots over it after the fact is not going to be helpful. You need to slow it down, calm it down, not move into a state of chaos. And having that playbook in place is going to be critical to making sure that you feel comfortable and everybody knows what their role is and they can just hit the ground running and not be in that chaos spin. So I'm going to go through this quickly. We've had some great content. I want to make sure we keep everybody on time here. So our cyber playbook has 4 core elements to it. We have the cyber readiness maturity assessment. That link has been put in the chat. So if you want, and that there's no cost to that. Even just going through that and looking at it, there'll be some ideas for you that you can take away and implement immediately in your organization. So there is a readiness maturity assessment, and you can submit that in. You'll get a report back with your score, and then you can see what other levels of maturity would look like, so you can do a comparison with regards to where your organization is. We have the playbook itself, and I'll go into more detail on that as we go through, templates, and the incident response team checklist. So the playbook objectives, as I said, is to get your organization up and running quickly. As a project manager, I've been involved in many incidents, cyber or otherwise, and too often when there's not a playbook in place and people don't know what needs to happen, they're tripping over themselves. There's no process. They don't know who's making the decisions. They're fighting over who's in charge. There's political maneuvering that's happening. There's all kinds of things that get in the way of just hitting the ground running. Our goal with this playbook is to have you up and running within 1 hour of the event occurring. Okay, so everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody's off doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they know what they need to get done. The next piece is, in terms of the objectives, is a clear set of tasks. So everybody knows what they need to do and the order in which they need to do it. And this is really important because there is a specific order of events that should be followed in order to make sure you have a successful remediation or response to the event. And finally, clear roles and responsibilities. This is absolutely key. You have to know who the decision makers are. We actually include a mock-up of an org structure that you would work through with your team to develop out to make sure that the org structure makes sense, both for the internal incident response team and for the external, when you're including the negotiators and the forensic investigators and other people that are external to the organization. So there's 2 org structures that are set up within the template that you will create to make sure that you're good to go. It's an easy lift. So the other thing that I know as a project manager is that oftentimes organizations spend years building out their business continuity plans or playbooks of this nature. And the net of it is they're over-architecting it, they're overthinking it, they're doing too much. It doesn't need to be that deep. So this toolkit that we provide is very, very easy. It's an easy lift. You can literally build this playbook in a day, and we do work with organizations to do that. So you may not have all the pieces in there, but you have enough pieces that if something were to happen, as noted, you can get out of the gate running in under an hour. So the Cyber Readiness Maturity Assessment, as I mentioned, you can go and submit this online. It's complimentary. You'll get a report back that will show you your score. And as indicated, even just reading the questions on the maturity assessment will help guide you in some things you may not have thought about that you need to have in place in order to be ready in the event of a cyber attack. So do go take a look at that, even if you choose not to submit it, and that's totally okay. There's information there that will be of value to you. The report itself will show you where you are on the maturity level, and then it will also identify for you what other maturity levels look like, so you can see what you could do in order to increase your level of maturity. Also, as indicated, there's some changes that you'll be able to identify for sure that you can implement right away without any further engagement of any other organization to help you to do that. The incident playbook itself, built in PowerPoint, very easy, printer friendly, lots of space on the pages in order to make comments and scribble stuff out if you have to in real time, things of that nature. So it's very all the instructions are in the notes for you. So the playbook can be purchased and you take it away and develop it out. It's literally a set of toolkits. It can be facilitated, but you can build it on your own as well. And all the instructions you need are in the notes section of each page in order to do so. One of the things that we include in there in the contents is a cyber response kit. So this is our buddy Dylan. We love Dylan if you don't know him. So he, of course, it says cyber response kit, do not touch, and Dylan is touching the cyber response kit. This is basically a workshop kit. So it's got sticky notes, markers, pens, paper. You're literally going back to pen and paper, not joking. So this is a workshop kit that you will use to prepare your project room that everybody on the incident response team will go to, and you're ready. It'll also include, of course, a copy of the physical playbook as well. It also includes key contact information. So how are you contacting your customers? How are you contacting your staff? Do you have personal email addresses for all of your staff? And, generally when I ask the question of different people in business units, they say, oh yeah, it's in our HRIS. Well, you're not going to have access to your HRIS. So where's the data? And in order to access the data, even if you have backups, you still have to access that system, which you may or may not have installed, or it may not be cloud-based. So you need to export that data on some form of frequency in order to make sure that you have it available offline to be able to use it to contact your clients, your vendors, things of that nature. It also includes a communications plan. So he's a lot about communications. So this communications plan, again, it's an easy lift. Okay, so I've done very extensive communications plan over my career, all the boxes. This is a very, very light lift. In essence, what you're looking at is, first of all, you're going to define your audiences, right? So do a very good job of making sure none of your audiences have been missed. You're going to identify your channels of communication. So we heard Scott mention WhatsApp, Signal. Some of these tools are ways that you're going to be able to communicate with staff when you're offline and you don't have access to Teams. Making sure you have a cadence and frequency of communication so people know when they can expect to hear from you. Things like a dark site, so just a one-page website that on a different URL that you can move your domain to, and you can provide real-time information to your client base and by updating this one-page dark website. And so your website goes offline and you move to this dark site. I don't know why they call it that, but they do. So that's another option. Also, what is the message that's being sent and who is communicating the message for each audience, right? So including the media. So who's doing your media communications? Have they had training to understand what to say, what not to say? If you look at the FCL and the London Drugs cyber events this year, excellent job. We've worked with some communications organizations. They did an excellent job at putting their communications together, following the script that they should be following in terms of crafting those communications. These can be crafted in advance, and you just plug in the details should a cyber event occur so that you're ready. The last thing you want to be doing is crafting messages that potentially go to media or to your external customer base when you're in the midst of chaos and everybody's tensions are high. You want to do these in advance and have the templates ready. So the communications plan is part of the kit as well. Business continuity plans, again, the design of these templates is to keep it light. We want it to be an easy lift. You need enough information that people can do what they need to do to keep those areas operational. Scott spoke about his welders are still out welding. That's great. Some areas of the business can continue to operate. So identifying, sitting down as a team, which business parts of the business can continue to operate, what information do they need in order to be able to execute and continue with those operations. And that's what you put into the template. If you build these out and they're too detailed and they're too deep, you've got a bunch of problems. One, it takes forever to get them done. And two, they have to be maintained over time and they basically become a mess and they collect dust on the shelf. So they're not super helpful when people over-architect or overthink getting the core information that's necessary for the business continuity plan. The next piece is the financial impact use case. So we just include this. This wouldn't be printed out with your playbook, but we include it for you to have some idea of some of the costs that you might face as a result of this. What would it look like? Scott talked about the fact they had long hours, right? Well, if you're bringing people in at $300, $400, $500 an hour for long hours, there's going to be a cost associated with that. So you need to kind of, the idea is your leadership team, and in particular your finance team, is doing that upfront kind of use case, looking at what those costs could look like, so that again, if the cyber event were to occur, they're not moving into panic mode. They've already hit their panic mode. They're past that. They're over the hump. They understand what it's going to look like. Okay, that's worst case scenario, moving on. And then when the event happens, or should the event happen, ideally we don't want it to, but if it does, then nobody's going into a state of panic over it. They knew what to expect. So that's the purpose of that use case. The templates that we have available to you, one is a staff communication template. So how are you going to communicate with your staff? Is it going to be WhatsApp? Is it going to be Signal? So that your staff know how are they going to be receiving information as they go through the remediation. So that staff communication template. And the first thing we do is we tell them, please send it to your personal email address. So you can reference it in the case of an event, because obviously you're not communicating with them the way you normally would day to day. The next one is the roles and responsibilities template. So we've identified the key roles in an incident response team, and we've assigned the key responsibilities for those teammates. So when they do their tabletop exercise, whether it's quarterly or twice a year, whatever that is, everybody knows what their responsibilities are, and they go through the playbook and the roles and responsibilities documents step by step so that it's clear for everyone and it becomes rote experience. Password and MFA policies. I'm going to we'll see if we have time for the poll at the end. I want to make sure I get through the rest of the content. There's only a couple slides left. Making sure you have strong password and MFA policies and that they're being enforced in the organization is super key. Business continuity plan, as I said, the template is available in the toolkit. And then finally, we have an incident response team checklist. So this checklist basically goes through the key response activities that are in the playbook, but it's just a one-pager so that when the team grabs their cyber incident kit and then they go into the project room, they have this one-page checklist, boom, 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 and they hit the ground running. So those are all the elements that are included in the playbook. I have like a minute left. So Tasneem, if you want to launch that poll for the MFA and password policy, we are interested to see how many of you have implemented these various pieces within your organization. Okay. You can just select your options and submit on that poll and we'll see where we are. Good on the MFA policy. Yeah. Not so much on the password policy, and the password tool is pretty low. Yeah, the password manager tool. When we do audits, like brute force attacks and audits on our passwords, people using the same password on multiple applications, not using we see a lot of issues with passwords. So if you start running some audits, you may want to start looking at what a password manager tool might look like for your organization. Thank you so much for everyone who submitted their responses on that. Really appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to hand it back over to Lorraine, and we are on target.
Wow.
Thanks, everyone.
That was amazing. Trish, thank you so much. What a fantastic presentation. And I know you ran through it, but you really did. It was excellent. And I'm sure, hopefully everyone was able to click into the link in the chat. And I think we can just maybe put that up one more time to make sure that everyone was able to access that. Aamir, Scott, Trish, Dave, you guys did an unreal job today. I know the work and the time that goes into these presentations and to these moments with our community. We so value your expertise and your generosity and your time and your thought leadership for our community. So just thank you so very much to all of our sponsors and our teams at Horizon, Fortinet, and Rubix. Thank you again for your support. We are going to stay on for a few more minutes. So if you do have some questions if you have time to stick around, please do so. We can address some of the questions. If you would like to put any kind of comments, we can do that now. But thank you again so much for your time, and everyone who does have to leave, have a wonderful day, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's continue on. So I think a lot of people will kind of have to move on for the day, but if there's any questions or if anybody would like to ask anything of our presenters, we can do so now. And this is going to be very casual, so I'm just going to jump in here and say, Dee, why don't we start with you?
Hi, first of all, thanks guys. Fantastic presentations. Great job, Dave, with moderating this. Good to see you guys all. My question is for Trish. My last engagement was to create an incident response playbook, and everything you talked about was a painful challenge that I went through. So I found your talk extremely enlightening. One of the things you'd mentioned is that you have templates for roles and responsibilities, but you probably are also aware that different organizations, different sectors will have very custom roles and responsibilities. So how do you get past that challenge in making those templates customizable? We just had a CISO event a couple hours ago, and we were talking about different titles mean different things at different levels of organizations. So how do you get past that when you're creating a kind of a playbook kind of as a catch-all?
Yeah, and I hope the answer that I give you is going to be helpful. And that this isn't something you've already tried. But the idea with this is these roles and responsibilities are 100% separate from your general role and responsibilities. So the way that when you see the roles and responsibilities and what's in there, this is the role and these are the responsibilities. The only thing that people should be doing with these, other than just sticking to what it says, because here's the thing, my comment back to a team if they're struggling with this is, here's the thing. Do you want it done or not? You either want to hit the ground running in an hour, or we're going to spend days sorting this out, which is a complete and total waste of everybody's time. So have at it, your choice. But you really need to facilitate through that and help them to understand, because what it is, it's functional, right? So we're basically, the only thing that's going to be the differentiator, or should be the differentiator, is A, your organization is very small, so you may not have a primary and a backup for each role. B, you may have to collapse and not have a role. So we have an incident response coordinator and an incident response manager. We don't need both. We only need one. So we kill the coordinator. Anything that's there that's not hit in their manager, we just put it over there. But these are all functional responsibilities. So there's no debating that it has to happen. The only other place is going to be that org chart that I mentioned. And that's where you're going to get into those political maneuverings where people are like, I want to be the decision maker. I want to, fine, great, work that out. That's 100%. But the roles and what they're responsible for are functional. It's really not debatable per se, and people need to get past that. So it's like you have your role every day. When you're on the incident response team, here's your role, full stop, just moving on. Right? Does that help?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And the point being was that I went blue in the face saying it doesn't matter who has this authority, just decide who does.
Correct.
And your response perfectly summed that up. So thank you. Like that was perfect.
Absolutely. Great question. Great question. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Kent Smith, you got your hand up.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I do. On the mark. Hey, let me disclose. I spend a lot of my time in this space, and I'm very aligned with so many points that were made today. And you probably saw me chiming in with some remarks throughout, because there was a lot of things that hit the mark, and that's really cool. So really fascinating, and the real short story of this, but what is so fascinating about it is the Institute of Corporate Directors asked me to facilitate a tabletop exercise for 90 directors in Manitoba for their chapter. And it was a super cool event. We were going through kind of an escalating scenario as you typically would go about in a tabletop exercise. we kind of landed at the point where we are now trying to figure out what we were doing with ransom. And lots of great discussion around that. One director brought forward the question, and I've been studying this since, of what if organizations actually made a very clear stance, but also publicized their stance on ransom. We as consumers can choose whether we want to work with that organization based on their policies or their stance on not paying ransom or paying ransom. And I thought that was super fascinating. Does publicizing that possibly make you like a deterrent to be in an enterprise that they would attack, because they're like, hey, clear policy, they're not going to pay ransom. And I've been just chewing on that so much since. I'd love just to kind of throw that question out there. It's probably more of a head scratcher than anything, but if you have any comments on that, I would be all ears.
I'd be curious on Amar's response to that, because as a hacker, is that going to deter you, or is that going to light you up to be even more interested in going after that organization? Like, what's your, as a hacker, when you put that hat on, what's your response to a company that says, we're not paying?
Yeah, so it depends on the threat actor. So I will tell you, first of all, me personally, I don't believe in paying ransom, because you don't know what it's going to be funding. A lot of these threat actors, there's a lot of other criminal activities that the ransom could be funding, including things like like the drug markets, human trafficking, other things as well that we don't want to talk about, right? So you have to keep that in mind. Now, on the flip side is, I have clients that if they don't pay the ransom, literally lives are in danger, right? And it's not fair for me to say like don't pay the ransom, right? Especially even forget about lives. Even if you take someone's sandwich shop, right? Like a small business, if that's their livelihood, they worked 20, 30 years for, and you tell them like you're going to lose that if you don't pay the ransom, that's difficult. So I'm definitely split on that. Now, just to go back to that question, is it depends on the threat actor. Some threat actors, if they know someone will pay. So I literally had a client that paid a ransom. It was a $4 million ransom that they ended up paying, and another threat actor actually found like their entire communication with the first threat actor on a Tor channel, on a darknet channel, and they basically attacked that same client again and said, hey, you know what, you paid $4 million, and since you paid, we know you probably negotiated a little more than that, probably like $5 or $6 million, so pay us another $300,000 in the next couple of hours, and you can still have your data back because you haven't fixed anything. And so it kind of encouraged them to definitely go after that again. Now, on the flip side, I've seen the other way around, where they're like, oh, they think they're smart enough that when they're not going to pay, well, we're going to give them a world of hurt and really go after them. And then other threat actors actually kind of use that as a call to arms and really go after them as well. And sometimes it's at that point, it may not even be about the ransom. They just may want to do like wiperware or destroy their systems and really just make it a real pain for them, because they kind of thought, hey, you were too smart, you think you're not going to pay, well, we're going to show you. So there's no good answer, I guess. Yeah, I think you have to really start looking at the things Trish, you talked about, and what we talked about on this call is make sure you have your backups, make sure you have a good playbook, make sure you actually run for these scenarios through table talk exercises, because whatever you think could be the worst situation could possibly be the worst situation. You need to be prepared for it.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing your thoughts. I'll just leave a remark. We don't need to answer it, but even in this conversation, we kind of came to the idea of like how an organization will have a privacy policy on their website. What if we were to disclose this right up front? Like it's right there, front and center on your website. We have a no ransom policy. Can that be a deterrent? So, anyways, super fascinating.
Yeah,
I'm still researching this topic. I'll let some other questions come up here first.
Thanks, Kent. Okay. Are there any other questions? I'm just quickly scrolling through to see if there's any hands up, or feel free to unmute and just jump in. Okay. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate our hosts, our presenters sticking around for a little bit of extra time to answer those questions for the members. Appreciate everything that you've done for us and the time that you've spent with us. It's been a great session. Looking forward to the next one. Thank you so much, everyone.
thank you, Lorraine. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Have
Bye,
a
Amir.
wonderful afternoon.
Okay,
Thank you
thanks,
all.
Connor. Thanks, everyone.